as individuals, have you experienced a family member being in the hospital? Having elderly parents and also our child, we've spent more than our share at the hospital. But if you would think with me just a few minutes, as you sat in that hospital room, and you're thinking, well, is that nurse going to come and give him the shot, or are they going to come change the sheets, or are they going to bring the food, or what are they going to do? Well, your mind is occupied with that all time. And 24 hours a day, you're worried about your family member in the hospital and what's going to happen to them. Are they going to make it out of here? Keep this in mind as we go through mine and Jenny's journey today with our child Josh. Jenny and I lived in North Mississippi. For some reason, they saw fit to put me in a boys' dorm when I was 22 years old, thinking that I knew how to run that dorm. We didn't get anybody killed in the dorm that I know of, but we did have a lot of challenges. I also ran their computer services for the college for many years. We moved to Jones County in the middle 70s, and in the latter part of the 70s, some point, Jenny and I lost a child, and then we had Josh in 1977. The doctor came to the room and told us, said that, you're the proud parents of a big, almost 9-pound boy. He wasn't very long, but he was very broad. And I don't know where he got that from. He did have hair, so it worried me that he had hair, but I think at one time I had hair. But he was a real bouncy boy. As time went along, you can imagine how much he grew. He was a very big kid, very active kid, walked early. We always had a few little problems with him, though. He as potty training time came around, we could not potty train him. It would be one time out of maybe 5 that you could get him to go to the bathroom, and then he'd have accidents. And our pediatrician in Hattiesburg just thought that this was a problem we need to look at. He also, sometime prior to the time he was 18 months old, he said, I want to try something. I need you to do some urine samples for me. I want to try something. He said that Josh's hair was coarse, and he had seen that at a children's hospital in Birmingham. So we went to Tulane and Ochsner's for a series of tests through their genetics clinic and through the pediatricians at Ochsner's. And they determined that our child had a very rare syndrome known as Sanfilippo syndrome. Only 10 known cases in the world existed of this syndrome that they knew about. They further tested to narrow it down and said he had type A. There were only 5 known cases of type A Sanfilippo syndrome, and he told us what would be the results of this. He said that at some point, his soft tissue was what was really affected. So at first it would be he couldn't walk, and he would have difficulty walking, and eventually it was also a degenerative disease, so his brain would just slowly go away. But as he grew, we couldn't see that. He was wide open. If he loved cows, he loved sheep. He thought the grandest thing to him was to go to the barn. And one day I missed him and I said, Josh, what are you doing? And he said, I'm playing in the cow mud. Jenny was gone to town and we had to do some fast hose cleaning. I can tell you if he didn't have it everywhere, I didn't find that spot. I think he had it in his ear. They had run and ripped, and it was just the worst mess you've ever seen. He was a normal little boy. And we kept questioning this diagnosis and asked the doctor, are you sure? And he said, yeah. He said, at some point, this will kick in. At 5 years old, at 4 years old, he knew all the ABCs. He knew the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and he knew a alphabetic word with every one of the alphabets. His favorite words were pizza, McDonald's, and chicken. Do not know where this kid got this love of eating from, but he had a love of eating for some reason. He turned 5 in March, and the week after he turned 5, he got the flu. After he recovered from the flu, the only alphabetic characters he could remember was C for chicken, M for McDonald, and P for pizza. And the pledge became the pledge. And that's all he could remember. His sleep habits changed. So where he was going to bed at 8:30, sleeping all night, he would go to bed at 8:30 and get up at 11 and stay up all night. He weighed 60 pounds. I can tell you he could throw a Tonka truck across the room and you had to watch him all the time. He'd laugh at you and throw it at you. He was just having fun. And as time went along, he continued to go down, and eventually we had to consider placing him in Ellisville State School. We placed Josh in Ellisville State School when he was 6 years old. Now, folks, that is the most heart-wrenching, most difficult decision that my wife and I ever made. I cannot tell you how many hours and days we cried over that. Because you know he's not coming back home. They don't recover from those disabilities. These parents that have children at Husbeth, North Mississippi Regional Center, South Mississippi Regional Center, Boswell, and South Mississippi Regional Center, their kids aren't coming home. They're going to be there for the rest of their life. That's something that Jenny and I had to cope with. Our parents had to cope with that. What really bothered us, though, we joined the Parents Association, and we, of course, you know, as all Parents Association, I think we did a fundraiser every week, I think. We repaired all the swimming pools. We bought buses for them to transport back and forth, and just simply because the state did not give them enough money to do those things. They had to find some money from somewhere else. We were totally dependent on his direct care worker. If he changed direct care workers, it threw Josh for a loop, and it would take him for days. And I can't tell you how many times we'd go down one day and he'd have a direct care worker, and the next day that direct care worker was gone. The turnover rate for direct care workers in the Department of Mental Health is 48%. That means who you see today is not going to be there tomorrow. They're going to be gone. His dorm supervisor wasn't there one day, and 2 days later we saw her at McDonald's as a shift supervisor. And she said, I just can make more money at McDonald's as a supervisor than I can at Ellisville State School. It just broke my heart, because Josh loved those people, and he's totally dependent on that direct care worker. So, you know, as a parent, grandparent of a 14, 15-year-old, you are concerned that your grandchild or your child is going to get their driving license, or they're going to be able to use their phone, a new iPhone, and we are preparing for them to go to college. Jenny and I were concerned about our child having his diaper changed or having his feeder tube cleaned by the new direct care worker that's only been there 2 days. This remains a problem in the Department of Mental Health, this turnover of direct care workers. There is things in our budget now that we are requested a salary raise for those people. we tell the staff all the time at the central office, you know, a supervisor can leave. A doctor can leave. But if a direct care worker leaves, it is like somebody just pulls the plug on what's going to happen in that end of the dorm. Now, we were very fortunate at state school as time went along. Josh did get 3 ladies that had him the 24-hour shift. They took care of his room, and his room had 2 more little boys in it. To the best of our knowledge, and we've talked about that in this past week, we never saw a family member for those other 2 little boys. Their family members were their foster grandparents, their direct care workers, and Jenny and I. We bought Christmas presents for them because nobody else bought Christmas presents for them. State school has a fund that's donated money that they can buy Christmas presents. That's all those little boys got. They never had a family member. Think about that just for a few minutes. They never had a family member that came to see them. It just broke our hearts. They were the sweetest little boys, but of course they had severe disabilities. You remember when I first started, I brought up the thing about you being in a hospital with your family member and how your heart just, if I leave, or is somebody going to take care of them? Are they going to bring them their meal? Or are they going to change their diaper? We just went through this with my 88-year-old mother. Folks, that's what parents of children with severe disabilities deal with every day. It never leaves your mind. It never leaves your heart. Jeannie and I would come in. We had our own computer consulting business as well as teaching school, and we would come in from work at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd go stay at school. We'd ride by and see our little boy. Or we may be leaving out at 4 o'clock that morning. We'd ride by and see our little boy. And I can truthfully say, I never found anything wrong. He was never wet. His bed was always clean. And he was always taken care of. We lost Josh in 2000. He was 23 years old. His 3 direct care workers sat with the family. That's how important they were to us. I would ask you, as you go back to your office, as you go back home, you remember tonight when you take your daughter, your son, your grandchild. There are a lot of parents that won't ever be able to do that. Jenny and I are one of those. We'll never be able to hold our son. Neither will Miss Teresa Mosley be able to ever hold her daughter. I'd like to say that things are better. Things aren't better. I would ask you to please remember there are a lot of things happening now dealing with mental health. I personally believe that the Department of Mental Health needs to be run by, or needs to be controlled by the board. We're the ones that know what's going on. That may not be what some people think. I believe that we understand the clients and the parents better than most anyone. I often get this call from this 80-year-old lady in Petal. Her 50-year-old son is at Ellisville State School, and she says, Mr. Landrum, I read in the paper that they're going to do this or that. And she said, is my Tommy going to be okay? She absolutely knows that if something happens and Tommy is not okay, and Tommy has to go to other living arrangements, she cannot take care of Tommy. She can't take him home, ever. She can't take care of him. I ask you as you go home, back to your office, please remember they are your constituents that are hurting. They have children, they have family members, and I don't know now, I've not experienced this. I don't have a family member that has alcohol and drug problems. I don't have a family member that has mental illness, as I understand, I don't. But I can only imagine it hurts as much for the mama and the daddy and the brother and the sister as it does with a child that is intellectually developed challenged. I would think it's the same. I hope somehow I've told you a little bit about our journey and how our difficult journey has been. And it's not over with. I love the Department of Mental Health. I love the people that work there. And I don't mean to insult anybody, but my real love is direct care workers. They deserve so much. They do so much. They get paid so little. But you almost never see one of them that says, I don't like my job. They work and they don't earn nothing. Most of them have 2 jobs. Please remember that the State Department of Mental Health, its board, and all of their employees are here to serve the clients. You know, my child would never be an alumnus for somebody, so he can't go fight, he can't advocate. I know sometime I've heard criticisms of our employees over in the Capitol. I wish none of them ever had to go over there because they have plenty to do. But you know, we don't have any alumni, so our alumni can't go fight for us. A lot of our parents are like me. They're older and they can't get around. They can't go to the Capitol. And if they went to the Capitol, they wouldn't know who to see or what to do. But you know, we have people like the central office people and our other people through the agency that can go and advocate for us. So remember, as you see them in that hallway, they're advocating for me and for my wife, Teresa Mosley, for Mr. George Harrison, and for all of you parents. Thank you.